11 years. It's been 11 years since the last animated Batman show, that being the incredibly short-lived Beware the Batman. However, that all changed in 2022 with the announcement of a brand new animated Batman series produced by Bruce Timm, you know, the guy behind Batman the Animated Series. But after that initial announcement, nothing. For 2 years, radio silence, aside from worrying talks behind the scenes of Warner Bros. Not having faith in the series, leading to Amazon entering a bidding war to release the series as an Amazon Prime original. Yeah, it wasn't looking good for the show for a while, until May of this year when we were given our first glimpse at this new show, along with a release date of August 1st, 2024. And well, how was it? Not to spoil anything, but pretty damn great. Though what will contain spoilers is the rest of this video. Trust me, you're gonna want to go into this show spoiler free. What really helps to separate Cape Crusader from the Batman shows before is the art style, for better or for worse. The 1940s aesthetic looks great stylistically, and of course fits Batman like a glove. Although the problem with the show's art style is that it looks a little too similar to the Tomorrowverse, with a somewhat cheap animation and minimal shading that has unfortunately become the standard for the majority of comic book cartoons nowadays. Which is such a shame, since the intro's art style, while essentially boiling down to screen caps and concept art in black and white, does such an amazing job at capturing both the tone and noir aesthetics of the era in which Cape Crusader is set. Although I doubt Warner Bros. Would greenlight a full-on black and white noir Batman show in fear of low ratings, since losing over $9 billion in less than 2 years isn't exactly going to put art before profit. Also, they just straight up still designed the GCPD and Wayne Manor from the animated series. And honestly, I gotta respect it. That's some fine architecture right there. But what really separates this show from other Batman interpretations is the fairly unique spin on its iconic rogues gallery, like completely separating Harley Quinn from the Joker by having her become a villain before him, as a therapist who holds her patients in captivity that she deems unworthy of redemption. Plus, this version of Harley Quinn is actually dressed like a Harley Quinn. But for now, she's completely separate from the man who jonkles. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if she joined the Joker somehow in season 2, but I'm holding on hope that's not the case. It'd be unique to have a Harley Quinn interpretation that's a villain and that's also completely separate from the Joker. Although not every villain design hits, like Harvey Dent for example, who loses some of his character transformation by having him be a sleazy lawyer from the get-go, instead of going from a by-the-books guy into a full-blown criminal. However, Cape Crusader's Two-Face still stands on his own merits, by having Harvey unwillingly give in to his true desires after taking acid to one half of his face, Long Halloween style, creating a scenario where he must keep his inner demons at bay instead of giving into the darkness. It's kinda weird he only flips his coin once as Two-Face though, in hindsight. Kinda his whole thing, you know? As he untimely gets gunned down in the series finale, which is a little sad, since there was definitely more potential with this spin on Dent. Although having his death be a result of Harvey sacrificing himself to save Barbara, this sort of ties back to his whole philosophy in The Dark Knight. Which is a nice touch, whether intentional or not. On the discussion of good villains in the show, onomatopoeia, not necessarily in terms of writing, but design. Absolutely styling out here in 40s Gotham. While I'm not hugely familiar with her character in the comics, Natalia Knight was one of the more tragic villains in the show, even paralleling to Ace from the DCAU to some extent at the end of the episode, with Batman carrying her off. More on that episode later, because there's something we discuss in further detail. Although calling her a villain is slight hyperbole, as she's just a kid going through the motions. Almost like Firebug, who instead of just being some random arsonist, is instead a very disturbed individual taken advantage of by both Flash and Bullock. This is easily one of the scummiest Bullocks put to screen. Not even a slightly dodgy cop like in the animated series, but instead a full-on villain on Thorne's payroll. Who also makes a grand return in this show, yet is still able to stand out from his animated series counterpart by having a much more hands-on affair with Gotham's politics, by lurking in the shadows, akin to Kingpin. Even Stromwell makes an incredibly brief cameo. Wonder if we'll see him in season 2. I don't have a lot to say about this version of Catwoman, but it's unsurprisingly another really great adaptation. They even gave her the Catmobile. Brave and the Bold fans are eating good with this take on Catwoman. I honestly forgot how good the 50s suit is. Wouldn't mind this being Catwoman's look in James Gunn's DCU. And two characters I have more to say on are Penguin and Clayface. First off, Oswald is such a dumb name for gender-bend Penguin. The only real issue with this take on Penguin is that she doesn't really feel like Penguin all that much. At least not yet. I feel like we'll have to wait till season 2 to see if she gets more development, but for now it's an okay take on Penguin. To be honest, Clayface was just kinda okay in this series. While his Golden Age design looks pretty cool for a serial killer, ignore how mental that sounds out of context. It felt kinda generic in a way. Personally, I prefer it when Clayface's entire body can morph instead of just his face. At least his name's accurate, and to the point. No false advertising with this guy. Final out of order villain we have is Gentleman Ghost, who again was another solid adaptation. The subway scene with him just running away from Harvey after poor shaming everyone on board was unintentionally funny. Overall, it's a good rogues gallery lineup so far, even some sequel bait with the man who jungles at the end, and he seems very promising based on his voice actor's very few lines, which feels more calculated rather than the usual loony Joker performance. But again, we'll have to see how that pans out in season 2. You know, at times I really feel like Batman is a side character with a surprising amount of screen time the actual side characters are given. Thankfully, they're pretty well written, so it's not like we're wasting time or anything. For a show about Batman, it doesn't feel like he gets enough screen time, which is a very big problem due to his characterization. This show goes for a more douchebag Batman approach, who's incredibly isolated, even from Alfred, who he refers to as Pennyworth, which, you know, is a bit weird since this man raised him, but alright. I don't know, this Batman just gets bad vibes all around, even as a kid. His character arc of going from dickhead to slightly not a dickhead felt a little ham-fisted, since again, the screen time between Batman and the other characters felt very unbalanced. I'm not saying Batman needs to be on screen at all times, but he could have made a few more appearances, even as Bruce Wayne, who I think we see more than Batman. It does help him to feel more like a supernatural force, like in universe, but that's an unintentional bonus. With the homage to BTAS at the end of the season, it could sort of be a metaphorical way of foreshadowing that this Batman will go from deranged loner like Jensen Ackles Batman to the more compassionate Batman of the animated series. They also dropped most of the Bat family in episode 8, which is crazy. Like, we straight up got appearances from Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Stephanie Brown, and even Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns, which raises a lot of questions for the potential future of the Bat family in the Cape Crusader continuity, since they already know each other, and again, Carrie Kelly's sheer existence in this universe, she'll most likely become this continuity's Robin, which will be interesting to see. This show also has a fairly unique take on Barbara Gordon by having her be a by-the-books lawyer that believes in the justice system's process, that learns over the course of the season that Gotham, shocker, is a very corrupt city. At the beginning of the show, it's almost impossible to see her as Batgirl in this continuity due to her loyalty to the legal system. By the end of the season, she's definitely putting on a cowl at some point in season 2, or 3, if we're lucky enough to even get a third season, which feels very unlikely with Warner Bros. Being the great company they are. I beg the DCU does well so they finally get their shit together. In all honesty, I'm kind of worried for this show's future. Like, sure, it's Batman, so it's going to do well no matter what, but again, considering this show was stuck in corporate limbo for 2 years because of Warner's greed, I wouldn't be surprised if this show got axed mercilessly after season 2, such as the fate of all too many streaming shows in the past few years. Real talk though, it's fucking crazy that this show can essentially get wiped off the face of the planet as some greedy old guy in a suit wants more money. Although at least we have the guarantee of a second season, which looks like it could be gearing up to introduce Batman's more iconic villains, like obviously Joker, but also some more hidden setups like Scarecrow, Poison Ivy, and Mr. Freeze. To wrap this video up with a nice little bat-shaped bow, I really hope this show tries a bit harder to lean into gothic noir aesthetics that they're trying to go for, as the sort of cheap Tomorrowverse art style is the main issue holding Cape Crusader back. Despite my many complaints in this video, I actually had a pretty good time with the show overall. It's a pretty solid first season, 8.5 out of 10 even. Anyway, it's Penguin season now. See ya.